Your trauma is not your fault, but healing is your responsibility. And if you make the right changes to your physical and mental attitude, you won't have to suffer throughout your entire life, and you will actually be able to use those traumas to turn you into the man you want to become. And I know this because I've been through it. I've been to a very dark place, man. And I'm talking about depression and anxiety. But now I'm grateful to say that I'm a man who is on a path that feels very nice. And I use my trauma to motivate me. So let me give you a bit of a backstory. So whilst growing up, I experienced quite a lot of things that effectively became trauma for me. And I won't go into too much depth about them right now because I don't really want this video to be too long, but I will tell you what they are in short. The first one is my younger sister, who is my only sibling, having severe special needs, meaning she relies on our parents for all of her personal care and needs. She can't communicate at all, so whenever she's upset, it's always a guessing game to try and work out what the problem is. And ever since she was born, so since I was about 8 years old, I have lived with her, and I've always felt this overwhelming sense of responsibility on my shoulders to protect her and care for her as much as possible. And even though I know it's not directly and solely my responsibility to revolve my life around hers and care for her, it simply feels impossible for me to do this, and it has always been that way, as at the end of the day, I'm her big brother and I love her. Anyway, I don't have any close friends who share a similar experience to me with this, so I've never been able to relate to anybody or talk to anybody who's been through the same as me and has the same worries as me. Like, as much as I've worried about my sister in the past, I've also worried a huge amount about my parents, as, you know, they spend 90% of their day running about after her, so they don't really get much time to themselves. And obviously they're getting older as well, so it can definitely be stressful to think about at times. But yeah, that's the first situation. And the second situation is that both of my parents were actually very ill a few years ago, and I honestly thought both of them were gonna die. Thankfully, they weren't ill at the same time though, because I mean, yeah, that really would have been a disaster. But yeah, my mum was ill and had breast cancer, and then about a year or two later, my dad had to have major bowel surgery, which resulted in him getting a stoma bag. And his operation had so many complications, and they had to re-operate on him. But thankfully, they both managed to get better, and of course, I am so grateful for that, like, I can't even explain. So yeah, I'd say those are the things that I experienced while growing up. And like many people who have experienced trauma as a young person, these experiences had a huge impact on my mental health. And let me just say quickly that trauma and how it affects somebody is different for everyone. So for example, some people may have been through way more than I have, but they might not necessarily feel the impact on their mental health. And then others may have experienced less than me, but suffer from mental health issues more than I did. So it doesn't matter, because trauma is still trauma. You know, it's not a comparison game where we have to try and one-up each other. Like, imagine telling someone how shit you feel, and they responded by saying something like, your year was nothing like mine, bud. Like, I went through that, and then I went through this, and you know, it was a really hard one, man. It was really tough. Nah, come on, man, it doesn't work like that, you know. Trauma is still trauma. Anyway, what I find interesting is that the mental health issues that I had only came through when I was about 20, which is actually after the traumatic experiences occurred. And it's weird because when I was living through those traumatic experiences at the time, I honestly felt fine, and I remember close friends asking me how I was managing to cope with it all. And to be honest, I just used to brush everything off and get on with my life. I'm guessing I was just numb to everything that was going on. But looking back at it now, I can see that it eventually caught up to me. And I'd say I struggled badly for about 2 or 3 years. And it eventually got to the point where I was taking medication to control my anxiety. And I was depressed to a point where I didn't really feel any pleasure in anything, and nothing excited me. Which of course is a very scary place to be in. But thankfully I'm in a much better place now, because I've learned a lot about myself and I've learned how to control it. In the past, I used to watch funny videos on my phone, or I'd play Xbox, or I'd drink to try and make me feel better. But that shit didn't work, obviously. I box now, I meditate, I eat healthily, I speak to people whenever I feel like I've had a bit of an iffy day, which is quite a rare occurrence nowadays, thankfully. I educate myself by trying to learn about self-improvement, and ultimately I'm following my passion and I'm trying to run a business by posting online content. And now, instead of thinking that those traumatic experiences happened to me, which is something I always used to do, I now believe that those traumatic experiences happened for me. And this mindset shift has been insane. I've chosen to completely flip the table and use all of those traumatic experiences in my favour. And I use it as fuel to take me out of my comfort zone and chase my passion. And I am now a man with purpose and direction, and nobody's going to stop me. I trust the process even when I'm annoyed and I don't understand why this particular thing has happened, because I now know that it is just part of the plan and that eventually it will all make sense to me. So there you go. Sorry if I got a bit heated there. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. I'm thankful to have expressed myself. But that's my own take on traumatic experiences. The trauma is not our fault, but it is our responsibility to heal from it. And if I can do it, so can you. I'll see you in a bit, fella. Take care. Anyway, what I find interesting is that the mental can't actually talk.